all electrolyte and hydration mixes and drinks are not created equal. I mean, check the ingredients. They have sugar or sugar alternatives, and there's tons of added stuff. Allow me to introduce you to the best electrolyte mix, Light Balance, LYTE balance.com. It's a naked electrolyte mix, which means no preservatives, no sweeteners, no flavoring, no caffeine or gluten, and no calories. I'm always on the search for the best hydration, and I've found it. My entire family uses it, and I use it on all my runs. It solved all my hydration issues. Your body needs magnesium, potassium, and sodium, which Light Balance conveniently provides in liquid or powder form. Pure, powerful hydration. Light Balance. Go to lytebalance.com. Our guest today on episode 160 of the Mental Toughness podcast is Chief of Staff at the University of Texas Football. He's been Director of Ops at USC, at University of Washington. He's completed the World Marathon Challenge, which is 7 marathons in 7 continents in 7 days. He's also written a book titled Running the Distance. Our guest at the age of 5 found school and had sensory processing issues and discovered that he had dyslexia, and very excited about this conversation today. Very passionate individual. You meet these individuals that have a warm soul, and this is one of these individuals. So I'm glad to connect. Looking forward to this conversation today. Our guest today is Jared Blank. Coach, we could connect, man.
Oh, no, thank you so much. I welcome the opportunity. I'm grateful that you reached out, and excited to talk with you. I know you got those books, and you're an ultra runner yourself, and it's great to connect with you. So I appreciate the opportunity to be here.
Absolutely, man. Well, timing is everything. I mean, I had to wait till the end of obviously the collegiate football season for us to be able to schedule it and do it. And one of the mantras for the year that you and as the team had is capable of anything and entitled to nothing. And that's a great one. Let's just start with that, man. Unpack that season for us and that mantra.
Yeah, no, I think that was something that came out of fall camp, and it spoke to me, I think, really like at the core, just because of probably how I grew up in my background. And I know obviously applies to the team, and something that the team took on is, it didn't come from me. So I want to be clear on that messaging is, through our head coach, but it's something that resonated, and I think resonated with our whole operation, just in that we can achieve anything, but we're not entitled to it, and we're not. I think that puts you at a humility that's really healthy, and then obviously allowed this team to go all the way to the semifinals with it this year, and achieve a number of individual awards, and just really excited. We have amazing staff, and coaches were recognized throughout it. So I think that's something that hopefully will stay, because I think that sentence means a lot.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So I mean, you make the semifinals, have a successful season, but on the terms of like outcome, I mean, obviously didn't reach the ultimate goal. But my question for you is this: what's one memory that stands out to you, whether it was in a relationship with an individual, something that you were able to overcome, but what's something that really stands out from this season for you?
I think just this ability for this team to regroup after things that may not have gone the way we wanted to. I think that always stands out. It happens after a tough loss in the middle of the season, and then you see the rebound and you see the refocus, and then happens again. SEC championship didn't go the way we wanted to, but then you see the response, and just the continuation of being able to work through when things don't go the way of the team, and then the response. And, we control our attitude, and you could just see that such a positive attitude, such a inspiring place to be because of how this team regroups. So I think that was something that just stood out in my mind, and you'd be able to keep seeing it time and time again.
Yeah. What I hope you don't mind this question, man, but
No.
what's something you learned about yourself from this season? Because obviously, I mean, what people don't see on the outside is how long these seasons go, man. I mean, it's long, a lot of relationships, a lot of up and down. What's something you learned about yourself?
Yeah, I think something that I learned about myself throughout this year is just how important process is. Process allows you to stay in the focus of the day to day and not get ahead of yourself, not worry about what just happened, but like be in the moment. I read something on Instagram today that really summed up that point. It was like the surfer mentality. Like the surfer mentality is like you're on the wave and you enjoy the wave and you know that at some point that wave's going to end, but it doesn't take away from the focus of what's needed to be on that wave in that moment. And I think that's something that really stood out to me personally for the season, is just how important process is, and to stay week by week, just stay focused on what we need to do. And for me, my stuff is probably this, I call it the stuff you wouldn't see between the lines of the field. It's more of the operations and logistics behind it, and work with an amazing team of people that do all that. So like how we stayed focused as a group, I thought that was really cool.
Love it, man. So let's go back to your childhood. And this is meaningful to me because my son has sensory processing issues and has dyslexia as well. And a counselor told us this one, and I thought it was a pretty righteous statement, but it was like if you're on a phone call and the call keeps kind of cutting in and out, that's how he learns. You described it as running with a cut on your foot. And let's start with that, man. When you were, I mean, even little before like everything kind of came out, but you were told that. Like, what was that experience like for you, just in terms of because you liked learning, but what was the experience like?
Yeah, it's a great question. So one, really fortunate to come from a family with resources, and my mom was a teacher, and so her recognizing that things weren't clicking for me in the classroom, even at 5, and then getting, we were living in Oregon at the time, and go down to California to get the official diagnosis, dyslexia and sensory processing, and all that entailed. And then throughout this process, we meet with the doctor, and I learned kind of, hearing the story early, but then like really how it reflected later in life. But the doctor basically said like the next 18 years being in school is going to be like running with a cut on the bottom of your foot. And she's like, it's going to be painful at times, but you just need to know that you can do it. And I think hearing that, and especially knowing that later in life, because throughout the journey of going through school, like there's like handwriting is really tough, or I'm looking at a piece of paper and the words, there's words on the paper, but then they're not processing the way that they would process for somebody who isn't dyslexic, are frustrating moments, like those are hard moments to be in as I reflect back. And so just how true it all was. And then, like my parents are told at a certain point in my education process, like that, hey, he might not graduate high school, don't expect above a C average, like certain things like that. Those are the hard things to hear. But if you really think about it, it's like, okay, those are the hard moments. But this doctor, when I first started, told me just keep going. Like, like there's an element of just keep going. And so having that line, or hearing that line, and then knowing what it means later in life and how it reflects back, kind of ties the story together.
Yeah,
I don't think she
absolutely.
realized how literally I was going to take her on running, but
Got to put it into play, man. I get it. When so again, as a kid, a doctor says that. And were you there for that as well? Like, did you absorb that and hear that?
I remember hearing it, but I think it was my mom who like reiterated it to me,
Okay.
if that makes sense. But I remember being in that room, but it was more like it applied as I was kind of going through,
Right.
because my mom was good at taking notes on all this stuff.
And you've been quoted in podcasts saying that was kind of like a superpower, but I'm always fascinated by this. I mean, 60% of self-made millionaires are have dyslexia.
It's
And and the amount that if you have dyslexia, what you have to overcome, that resilience, that grit, right? Even being creative in terms of you were exercising muscles that if it came easy to you, it wouldn't. But like when you were going through that process, did that voice or did that memory, did that drive you even further? Like, I will overcome this, I will be successful.
Yeah, I think, if I was looking for like the driving force, especially as I was like, because the drive, like I started to feel probably in middle school to high school, like that zone, really came from I wasn't supposed to be there. I wasn't supposed to graduate. So like that was always kind of the chip on my shoulder. Um, Knowing that information, I was always really super concerned with that, like almost obsessive over like, being in the classroom at high school, like, oh, this is a place I wasn't supposed to be, or I wasn't supposed to graduate. What work is it going to take to be successful in this place when there is all this doubt?
Hmm. Socially, what do you remember about that for you? Because you don't want to be different than your peers when it comes to being able to learn or have extra class time or have to go to tutors. Socially, what was it like for you?
It was, I think there were unique points, right? Like there was elementary school where you're like pulled out of class to, you had to go to this resource room that everyone knew the kids that went to that resources room was anybody with a disability. So then it's like, why are you going to this room? Like what's going, like you're answering those types of questions. Um, and so I think it does have a social element to it. Uh, as I was going through high school, though, it was like, you know, it really took me 3 hours to do somebody's 1 hour of homework. So then socially, like I knew I had to make decisions that if I wanted to be successful in the classroom, like there's investments that I had to make, studying. I was studying most of the weekends and staying up late most nights or getting up early to knock out homework. I was just like constantly doing homework. I remember I think about Spanish class. Like in order for me to learn Spanish, I had to make flashcards of everything. Not this was it wasn't learning. I was really what I was doing was rote memorizing everything.
Hmm.
And so I look back at that and just the time investment it is to have achievements with dyslexia, you know, and we didn't know all the things that we know today back when I was in school, but playing with the cards you're dealt, like that's what it took. I had tutoring on top of school, so we called it school on top of school, but it was like
Right.
being in that environment all the time.
And you go from, hey, might not even graduate high school to two separate master's degrees, and an MBA. Um, that that style of life, because again, like I always say this one, a worm and horseradish, the whole world's horseradish. Like you don't know any different, right? You know what it's like for you, you know what your reality is.
Right.
You have to study before school and after school. You develop this system of how you learn. How did that, and I'm just even talking like with school wise, not even getting to the marathons yet, but like how
Yeah.
did that part, what did you notice how that actually helped you later on?
Yeah. So it's kind of like training a muscle, right? Like, so if you're spending all this time doing something and then you still have a full day of school and then you're doing it again at night, like, I didn't realize it at the time, but I was essentially training this muscle of like, so I would have energy at the end of the day. Like, so when I started working full time, like I would have energy at the end of the day. So it's like, oh, what can I do? And so it's like, oh, there's a master's program. Like you could go to class for another 3 hours. And,
Yep.
and so you kind of think about it that way. And I think, I met with, I, when I was a child, I met with a person that had dyslexia. They were a grad student at the time. So I knew getting a master's, being dyslexic and getting a master's was like possible even though I was struggling in school, and I kind of didn't want to meet that person because it meant more school. But then when I got the opportunity to get a master's, it was like I kind of felt like a push to do it. And maybe not in all the right reasons, but playing with the chip on my shoulder or wanting to prove something, and having energy to do it, it kind of naturally fit.
Yeah. If you're struggling with soreness, pain, or inflammation, you need to check out Stamina Pro recovery patches. Developed for over 15 years, the clinically proven technology of Stamina Pro is free from all chemicals, all pharmaceuticals, all drugs, and it's 100% safe for athletes. I only promote products that I use myself, and Stamina Pro takes care of all my training needs, pain, and soreness. If you use the code DRB15, you get 50% off, or use the link below, Stamina Pro. Absolutely, man. And then and then the role of sports, like even growing up, man, like obviously you start running early, but like talk to us about your experience and relationship with sports.
Yeah. So one of the things I did was I would put on my shoes and go out the door and run until I couldn't really run anymore. And that was usually 1 or 2 laps around the neighborhood at the time. But like,
And how old are you at this point?
I was probably in middle school when I figured this out.
Okay.
So I was, I always had like soccer, like I played soccer as in elementary school, loved, sports. So like my day in elementary school was usually practice spelling with my mom, get up, go to school. Then we go to occupational therapy, go back to school. Lucky if I had like some sort of practice to break up the day. And then it was tutoring at night. But what I figured out when I was doing math homework one day and I was frustrated as all heck. I was breaking pencils over it and I was just like, okay, I need to go. And I went out the door. I went running. I think I went 1 or 2 laps around the neighborhood, came back in, and I could like do the math.
Yeah. Right.
And like something happened. I don't know what happened, but I was
Yeah.
like, and then once I figured that out, I was like, oh, I got to have movement all the time.
All the time, man.
And just movement was like super key at that point. And, played soccer and ran track in high school, and just like having that is where I would like take a break from studying. That would be the thing that would get me out the door to like do something different.
Yeah.
And, yeah, ever since then, I've kind of like, you forget that trick, but then you realize like you're working at your desk and it's like, I don't know how to say this email. And then you go for a walk or grab a cup of coffee and come back. And it's like, oh, I know what I'm saying now. And it's
Yep.
like, so I still use it even today.
Yep. Absolutely, man. I think that's probably like the biggest thing when it comes to like exercise. Because it's interesting, like my whole peer group, everybody I hang out with exercises, right? Because that's
Yeah.
what I do. So it's like when I meet people that number one don't like sports, even on any level, or don't exercise, it's like really foreign to me. But I think that's the part where if it's like, look, man, if you can just move, everything gets better, right? You get more creative. The ideas come to you. It's a stress reliever, man. And it's like um just that power of movement. You see the same thing?
Yeah, I totally see the same thing. And I talk to people about that too. It's like, even if you can just get out of your go for a 10-minute workout, go for a 15-minute workout. And my point to them is like, okay, you may think like, oh, 10 minutes isn't going to do anything or 15 minutes isn't going to do anything. But then if you think about it, it's like, if you've worked out for 10 minutes or you worked out for 15 minutes, how much closer are you to working out a half an hour when you have the time? So if you don't have the time to get to a half hour, but you get to 15 minutes, when you do have the time to get to a half an hour, you've already conditioned your body to be like, oh, I can definitely spend another 15 minutes in the gym, or I can do, so like I definitely am a champion of like figuring out, and it doesn't have to be running. I love running. I could talk running all day. um, it can be anything. It could be yoga, it could be, weights, anything that puts you in a different state. I think is super helpful to
Hmm.
our processes. And I want to go back because I thought of something. You talked about the social element of things.
Yeah.
I got to pick what high school I went to. That was my choice. My parents kind of let me do that. And and I remember like 2 or 3 weeks into school, my mom comes to the desk. She's like, "Hey, you picked this school, so it's on you to kind of decide how you want to, operate." And that was one of those aha moments for me too. It's like, oh yeah, I did make this choice, and if you want to succeed, like it's on you to like figure out what it is you need to do. And that's, I think that first weekend I spent 3 hours studying, and I was like, once I learned I could study for 3 hours, it was like, oh, I could study for way longer. I could do
Yep.
whatever I needed to do to get it done.
Yeah. And that's that confidence piece, right? Like once you do it, then you can draw on that later on, right? And I'm sure you have, man. Love
Yeah,
it.
1,000.
So your mom didn't come to you and be like, "Hey, we're just gonna try it out. If you don't like it, you can transfer." Like she said,
No.
"Nah, you're in."
Yeah, no, she's like, you made this choice, and I wanted to be there. Like, there was
Yep.
we had interviewed at other schools, and I wanted, mainly because I think the soccer coach I had at the time was coaching at that high school. So it's like, you want to play for your coach? This is what it's going to take to stay there. So it it motivated me in that, and I think allowed me to kind of unlock some of these things with time.
Absolutely, man. So the World Marathon Challenge, man, like when did the idea come to you that this was something that you wanted to invest in and do?
So I think it was 2015. I saw it on my couch. I was sitting in my parents' house. We're sitting on the couch. I see this guy on ESPN run 7 marathons in 7 days on 7 continents. So I was like, that's the coolest thing ever. I'm like, I'm going to do this. And my whole family was like, you're crazy. You're not doing this race. And so I tracked it for like 3 years before I actually did it. But I was like, I knew at that moment. And I think it goes back to like, right, how I grew up studying, going to school, then working out, then school. I was like, it's kind of no different, right? You're flying, you're running, you're flying again. So like, it's the same. To me, it was there was a synergy to it all. It
Hmm.
and I connected the dots. No one else really saw it my way, but I was, yeah. And so 2018, I was fortunate to be able to do that race.
And so the preparation for that, before we even get into those marathons and hinge moment that happens in one of those, but talk to us about what stands out about that preparation for it.
Yeah. So I, for me, it was, I quit my job in July of 2017 and committed 6 months to preparing my body for it. And I was fortunate to work with a local runner up in Oregon, Yassine. We connected after I'd signed up for it, after I'd already kind of trained myself for a month, but like I recognized I needed some help in trying to figure out some things. And it was a lot of back to back runs. It was a lot of doing different things. There's a trail in Oregon, Wildwood. It's like about 30 miles long. That was, we ran that one day, like just kind of like finding different ways to throw your body off, running on a treadmill, doing a marathon on a treadmill. Just we're trying all these different things, from your regular speed work to long runs, but then also kind of messing with the environment a little bit.
Hmm. And lay out the structure. Like, how did this start? You started in Antarctica?
Yeah, you start in Antarctica. So you
Okay.
fly as a group, you meet in Cape Town. We met in Cape Town, South Africa. And from there, you fly to Antarctica. And then what they do is they wait till they know that that plane can take off. So they need a 10-hour window. And then that's when they'll start the race. So you're kind of sitting in the bunker. You don't know exactly when you're going to start, but then they'll come and tell you like, all right, we're about to start. Like we've been cleared to take off. So you have 8 hours to finish each race. And then from Antarctica, you go back to Cape Town for the second race.
Okay. So then Africa's second.
Yep. And then you go to Perth, Australia. And then it was in Perth, like, so everything, Antarctica was an amazing run. Kind of on track time wise in my head of where I wanted to be. Cape Town was a little hot that day, so
Sure.
I slowed a bit, but I was still okay. Like I was feeling okay. Get to Perth and back on pace, back running like really consistent, and then at mile 22, I hear like kind of a click, and my whole left side's like locked up on me with 4 miles to go. And I'm like on the ground one point, like trying to like get my leg to respond. And I get up and I'm hobbling, and one of the runners comes up to me and goes, just think about getting to Dubai. Don't think about anything else. just and so I hobbled through those 4
Dubai was
miles.
next, right?
Yeah, Dubai's
Yeah.
next on this deal, and I hobble through it, and I call my coach back in Oregon, and I'm like, I don't know what to do because my whole left side's locked. I don't have a
It was your
stride.
knee.
Yeah, it's funny. I go, I he goes, where is it at? I'm like, it's in the knee. He's like, is it on the outside? I'm like, yeah. He's like, is it in the middle of the outside? I go, yeah. How do you know all this? He's like, yeah, it's your IT band. It's completely locked up. The good news is you can run on it. I ran on mine when I was doing 100. So you go back to the story of like running with a cut on the bottom of your foot, and now I'm like linking it all together. I'm like, okay, so it's going to be hard, but it's possible. Get to Dubai. We had done some work. He told me to do some stretching and some friction stuff.
Because I
Get
tell you what, man, like even foam rolling your IT band hurts, man.
Oh yeah,
You know?
I was doing that. I was
Yeah,
like, I was all on it, like trying to get it to iron out. Basically, what it was it was a strain, but it's like a 10-day injury, but you don't
sure.
have 10 days. You're running the next. So I'm running in Dubai. Somehow got the leg. It felt really unstable, but I was still running on it. Mile 23, it locks up on me. This time I pull out my headphones. I had EDM ready to go. So I'm just listening to some good music and just hobbling through. And that was kind of, swinging it out to the side. And I'm going to the next location. So we go to Dubai, then we go to Lisbon. Hadn't rained in Lisbon for eternity. I guess it rained the day we got there. We're running on concrete, wood, and cobblestone. So
Mm.
unstable leg on all the surfaces. Uh, got a record for myself that day. Spent the longest day I've ever had on a marathon course. It
How
took me
how long did that one take you?
about 5 hours and a half, 5.5 hours
Okay.
to finish. So I was just gutting it. Like I ran as much as I could and hobbled the rest of the way. Basically, is what that play was. And I'm on the bus. With the next spot's Cartagena, Colombia, and I'm on the bus, and uh, my like a trainer I used to work with at University of Washington actually texted me. He's like, hey, here's what you can do. Um, there's pressure points on your leg. Like if you hit them, you might be able to keep rotating as you're like running. So as my leg is like locking up in Colombia, like I'm pulling off and like using pressure points to like keep it going, and I'm keeping a rotation going. And I get back to running kind of at my I was projecting myself to be somewhere between 350 and 4 hours for each marathon. Like that was my kind of initial thought. And I finished that one in like 405. Like I was back on kind of pace. And the last marathon was in Miami, and I realized I could just, as painful as it was, I could just plant the leg and just run off of it like straight. And so I was doing that for like the last, I don't know, the last like 8 miles of it, but ran the fastest I'd done all week, which was like 403 at the time. So it wasn't like a perfect, like, you know, experience in regard to where I wanted to be time wise and finishing, but like I learned a lot about myself out there.
Yeah. When you finished that one, then in marathon, I mean in Miami, what walk us through kind of even that feeling that you had and what went through your mind, what you reflected on.
Yeah. So with about a half mile to go, I realized I'm running with all these people. You meet amazing people on this journey. Richard Donovan's the race director, does an amazing job putting this thing together. And I was almost like sad to finish the last half mile because then it's over. You
Right?
like you start to get in this routine of like waking up on a plane, getting out the door, getting to a location, running, and doing it all over again. And it's like kind of just want to keep doing that in a weird way. So it's kind of almost like the sadness that it was ending.
Yeah. That's what's fascinating that people that don't do these things that you would have that experience, but that totally relate to it. Like even afterwards, after you accomplish this, you get all the pats in the back, everything, and then you're at some point, right? You're back, you're alone with yourself.
Right.
Um, did you struggle with, okay, what's next or what now? Or like did you struggle at all like coming off that mountain and that high?
it's a great question, and I think I would have had I not done these two things. I had already signed up for an ultra race in the summer before I had left. I didn't
Which
tell
one
anyone.
would, yeah, which one was
It was
that?
Tahoe Rim 100.
Okay.
Um, I put in for the lottery, got it, and I didn't really tell anyone about it, but I just had that in my head of like, this is where I'm going. And then I also had this fundraising goal for the International Dyslexia Association of raising 50,000 while I was doing this challenge. And so I'd finished the physical part of the challenge, but I hadn't finished the fundraising goal. So I had that to work on too. So I had these two things that were kind of still like I was already ready to work on. And it kind of gave me, I wasn't like unfocused on what I needed to do in the meantime because I put them far. The race was far enough away. The fundraising goal had always been part of the journey. So I think I had these things to focus on as I finished
Great.
this one challenge.
Yep. No, it totally makes sense, man. And then, when you're doing this challenge as well, and then even in the back of your mind, it's just not all about you. I mean, you have a cause that you are helping and help individuals with that.
Yeah, when I decided to run the World Marathon Challenge, yeah, initially like you're right, you're the individual running it, but then I was like, if I'm gonna do this, I want to do this for something bigger than myself, and um, connect was fortunate. I didn't have this plan as I was like going through it. I was kind of figuring it out as I went, but connected with the International Dyslexia Association to raise awareness and funds for the organization and what they were doing and the work they did and or continue to do. And so that was a big part of it because I recognized again how fortunate and privileged I was to have resources, and I in the back of my mind I'm like, how much harder was it for students that didn't have those things, that come from marginalized backgrounds, that aren't given those opportunities, and like how much harder are they working to get to where they want to go, and how can we better help them.
Yeah, it's awesome, man. Um, how did, I always think about it like this, like what some people don't realize is like, I wouldn't say the running becomes the easy part, but there's so many details that I tell you what, man, if you're gonna be running in the woods, you're never gonna, and you forget your bug repellent, like
Yeah.
you're not gonna be forgetting that next time, right? So I
Right.
mean, there's so many details that go into it. How did that, even that process or running in general, how has that helped you professionally?
Yeah, I think one, it's there is a lot of preparation that goes into, and this too, right? Going into an ultra race, like all the little things you need. By the time you get to the race, you're just grateful that you're running and no longer having to think about the logistics and all those things. So there's something to that. Um, I think giving me the space away from things gives myself time, and so it's like through that movement, through being with myself, it's like I'm constantly like learning things, like, oh, how could I have said this better, is a conversation that I'll have with myself when I'm out running, or how could I have done this better, or where could I have improved. So I'm constantly kind of like, it gives you that space to like kind of get into that zone. Or for me it does personally, like, and so that's why I think I enjoy it so much, is it's kind of like a new way to learn while you're exercising, and I don't know, having enjoyment, where
Yeah.
I think, going back to my high school days, is like I tried to grind through things too much, where I wouldn't get to where I wanted to go because I was just staying in that zone of like studying and staying in the frustration versus like getting away from it.
Right. Yeah, great point, man. Um, and then what's your goal like moving forward with the impact you want to make with individuals with dyslexia?
Yeah, so fortunate again, I've connected with Park Academy, which is a dyslexic school in my home state of Oregon. Uh, it's the only school that's geared, like, specifically geared for dyslexia. So they are using all the methodologies and creating an amazing environment for their students. So created a scholarship fund there called the Running the Distance Scholarship.
Love it,
Um,
man.
So anytime like I speak or do things, the ask isn't monetary for me. The ask is a donation to the scholarship fund. I'm working with these people. It's called Let's Engage, but like they, so they host a platform for speakers and stuff like that. So anytime I get booked, it's
I
those
know, I
resources.
know, I know. Let's engage.
Okay, yeah. So you're familiar.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Had him on the podcast.
Yeah. So it's been really cool because now there's a way, and I mean people can just definitely donate to it individually, but there's a way to trying to create a sustainability way to keep the scholarship going.
Absolutely, man. Jared, man, I really appreciate this one, Coach. One last question, like what questions should I be asking that I've just kind of forgotten to ask?
You got some good ones today. I don't know if there's anything left on the table. No, I mean, I appreciate this opportunity to talk with you. I think, I think that the question, and I think we've been talked about it too, but I think the question I always ask is how does all these things like link together? How
Mm,
does running, sports, and dyslexia work, education? And to me, that would be the one question, like, how does it all link together? And I think if I was to answer it for myself, it's like, I grew up in Portland, Oregon. We had one professional team really at the time. It was the Blazers. And you see what sports can do for community, and you see what the importance of education does for a community when it's done in the right way. Like it really does breed a better world. And I think if we can figure out ways to continue to evolve our education process to serve all of our students, um, we're going to build better communities. And if we can bring them together through sport, I think that's even going to be a bigger win.
absolutely, man. Coach, man, I'll put the links on there, of course, but really appreciate the time, man, and thank you so much, man.
Hey, appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me.